Let's talk about Hisoka's new Nen abilities. Bungee Gum has evolved. Texture Surprise has also evolved. And Hisoka may very well now be one of the most broken Nen users in the entire series. This is because the very existence that is Hisoka is completely unprecedented. He is currently the only person in the series to have both cast a post-mortem Nen curse and be capable of wielding that power for himself. The way Nen works is all about balance. High cost equals high output. The harder it is to make, the more of a punch it's going to pack straight into the proverbial nutsack of your enemies. And that's why post-mortem Nen is the ultimate expression of aura, because its cost is the condition that the user dies. And not only that, but just before death, they need to be experiencing an emotion so profound that it invokes the user's aura to linger long after the soul has left the world. For example, Neferpito's desire to protect Meruem resulted in a superpowered Terpsichore being left behind as Pito passed on. The Meteor City Elder also felt such a strong desire to protect his people that his Sun and Moon ability remained in Chrollo's Skill Hunter after his death. And speaking of the troop, they were so incredibly afraid to kill Kurapika after the events of York New City, out of fear that his curse on Chrollo would only become that much more powerful due to Kurapika's admittedly rather intense desire for vengeance at the time. The interesting thing is that all of these cases are desires to do with someone else, or a group of someone else's, either to protect the someone else's or to do the opposite. Very much not protect them, kill them even. But Hisoka is our first exciting example of a very selfish use of post-mortem Nen. Following a very deathsome encounter with Hisoka's primary love interest Chrollo, our excitable battle clown lost his life, but not before invoking Bungee Gum to restart his heart and thus resurrect Hisoka. Hisoka's desire to live was so strong that his Nen just went, yeah, sure, why not? I'll do that for you, buddy. The first person we know of to both cast and wield post-mortem Nen. It's a terrifying prospect. Because Hisoka found a very tricksy loophole here, now capable of using powers that cost his death, but without needing to experience the true finality of that cost. As a result, he's demonstrated a slew of new abilities, including being able to replicate his own body parts with Bungee Gum, potentially capable of healing or replacing his own internal organs as well. And Texture Surprise can perfectly mimic his skin so that he's not just walking around the Hunt world looking like a glob of jelly that wasn't left in the fridge quite long enough, or Jello for our American viewers. And as I understand it, Jello is always jelly, but jelly is not always Jello because you can make jelly from things that aren't Jello. But that's a video for another time. Because we need to look at the implications of Hisoka's post-mortem state, not just in terms of his evolved existing abilities, but also in regards to where he sits on the Nen ring. Hisoka is a pure transmuter, meaning that this is certainly the area that receives the highest boost. However, his neighboring affinities of enhancement and conjuration are also going to be much more accessible than ever before, which could lead to an absurd amount of modification potential. Also, this video is sponsored by Raycon, the wireless earbuds offering earsomely premium sound, a completely comfortable fit, and a whopping 54 hours of battery life. I use earbuds a lot, like a lot. Cleaning, dog walking, video editing, gaming, not gaming, everything. So comfortable and long-lasting earbuds are paramount, and this is comfort. They make perfect gifts for all of the people, mother, father, co-worker, fitness friend, gamer, everyone likes to hear things, I assure you. In fact, you can knock the whole list off at once and get 30% off by shopping Raycon's holiday bundles, such as the Audio Lover Bundle, providing both the everyday earbuds and everyday headphones for maximum audio coverage. And as the person gifting them, you will be thrilled to know that they start at half the price of other premium brands. Click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/newworld and use code EARLYBF to get 20% off site-wide, or save even bigger and get 30% off Raycon's exclusive holiday bundles. There will also be different deals coming out throughout the season, and I'll try to keep the description updated with the latest offers. But just so you know, you can always go to buyraycon.com/newworld to get the best deals available for Raycon. So do that thing, but for now it's back to you, me. Starting with the basics, enhancement, which is usually the boring guy punch things hard ability, but not in this case. One of Hisoka's balance weaknesses is that Bungee Gum can only stretch about 10 meters before it tears. However, with enhancement, Hisoka could potentially stretch his Bungee Gum even further, which is already a devastating outcome in and of itself. Hisoka is such an incredibly intelligent tactician that increasing his options in fight battling is never a great outcome. Plus, it would effectively expand his field of attack as well. There's also the potential for gum hardening. Right now, Hisoka is happy with his sloppy, sticky rubber goop, but this does often cause him problems because Bungee Gum in and of itself can't actually harm opponents. That's why during the fight against Chrollo, he had to improvise by using a severed head as a mace. Very clever, very balanced, but also a bit convoluted. Whereas if he could say harden a glob of gum, then he could create some very cool options. Well, not necessarily just like a random globby ball thing, but even shape the gum into some kind of cool objects like hammers and spikes and, other deadly things. Quite similar to an ability we've recently seen in the manga with the Haley Mafia family member, turning his arm into a variety of death-inducing using tools, which he did as a conjurer. Very inefficiently, by the way, but Hisoka is in the perfect position to execute something like this if he so desired. Transmuters and conjurers seem to be much more capable of morphing their own bodies efficiently, such as Bisky and Tsubone. But the thing is, Hisoka would be able to do this even easier, because he doesn't have to turn his actual body into a vehicle or a weapon or in anything, because what he's using as his body right now is transmuted aura. But since Hisoka can already replicate parts of his body with bungee gum, why not go one step further and morph his body into gum like a Logia-style devil fruit from wacky pirate comic One Piece? Body morphing in Hunter x Hunter is rare, but again, not unheard of, especially not in Hisoka's neighborhood of the Nenring. Tsubone did it with Riders High, so the principle here would be that instead of conjuring your body into an object, you're transmuting it into a substance, which usually would not at all be recommended. For example, if Killua were to transmute his body into electricity, then he would risk losing whatever body part became the substance because it would dissipate and probably leave him with no limbs. However, bungee gum is a very different substance. It doesn't dissipate like electricity, smoke, or fire. It lingers, or I should say, it sticks. So there's much less risk associated with Hisoka transmuting his own body if that is indeed possible. I should say that there's also a much more morbid solution to this as well. Forgetting transmuting the body, there is a world where Hisoka could simply lop off his various body parts one by one and replace them with bungee gum prosthetics. Layered in a delightsome texture surprise. Because I suppose that's the thing. If Hisoka does fight a powerful opponent and loses another arm or a leg or whatever, then that's going to be the solution anyway. So why not preempt it? It would also make Hisoka infinitely more durable in battle. There is no doubt that bungee gum is far stronger than the human body. Skin and bones are fragile, very, very fragile. That's why the first thing you learn about Nen is how not to break yourself. But a body with the properties of both rubber and gum, well that's infinitely more durable. Even if an opponent was to cut off a limb, Hisoka would just regrow it. And usually I would say there would be an extremely high cost associated with doing such a thing, but post-mortem Nen has made Hisoka the equivalent of a Nen billionaire. He can afford to pay insane costs, even if it's objectively inefficient, because he more or less exists outside of the system. Even with that, I'd say there would still be need for some restriction. Like Hisoka probably can't just turn his whole body into gum. At the very least, he'd need some sort of core remaining, like a brain and or heart. A weak and beatable core if you're not careful with it. Knowing Hisoka, he may even elect to keep his raging Schwing Maker as well. And hey, there's also a good argument to be made that that's exactly where Hisoka's brain is anyway. But as mad as this sounds, remember, we are talking about Hisoka here, and I could absolutely see him removing his own limbs and replacing them with gum prosthetics because there's fun battling to be had. And it's also a bizarrely appropriate use of post-mortem Nen, like gradually saying goodbye to your previously living body and all of that. Looking at the other side of the Nen ring though, we also shouldn't ignore the potential for omission and manipulation, the latter of which is Hisoka's exact opposite affinity. And generally, we would dismiss it entirely, as I imagine Hisoka did during his first life, simply because it's a very inefficient way to spend aura. Again though, Hisoka is now Mr. Moneybags when it comes to aura, and he can spend it on all sorts of Nen equivalents of private jets and golden toilets, which in this case would be manipulation. He could pioneer a combination of transmutation and manipulation by transmuting gum aura into a rather Hisoka-shaped clone, and then use manipulation to command it, which there is precedent for because that's exactly how Moral controls his smoke clones. He transmutes the aura into smoke, and then he goes and controls them. Except he has to go through the restriction of the pipe and also incorporate emission to make it work, due to the fact that he is a post-mortemless pleb. With this, Hisoka could even pull a Crollo on Crollo. During their fight, Crollo constantly got the better of Hisoka by having other people forcibly impersonate him. So if there was a rematch, then having Crollo face Hisoka clones would make this whole conflict come full circle. Emphasis on the word come. Another example of successful cloning with unsuccessful affinities is of course Castro, the enhancer who used conjuration and manipulation. However, the aura investment was the equivalent of dumping all of your money into Dogecoin, whereas Hisoka has traditionally been a rather astute investor. But with that said, he now has so much more aura capital and so many more market opportunities. It's at the point where it almost doesn't matter where he sits on the Nen ring. The only thing that gives us is which part of the dual or even trio of affinities that he could implement. Hisoka is unprecedented and unrestricted. Right now, the only thing that is pretty much off the table is specialization, but even then, things could happen. But something we absolutely must not forget is texture surprise. This discussion so far, it's all been very gum-centric, but the most exciting potential ability for me comes from texture surprise. Texture surprise involves Hisoka conjuring, typically paper, and changing both the visual and physical properties to replicate a texture, which I take the time to point out because it's a common misconception that Hisoka just carries sheets of paper around with him for emergency use, but they are definitely conjured. Come to think of it, his playing cards are probably conjured as well, which is why they're far more deadly than regular playing cards. That, and he's like coating them in a layer of shoe and all that. Like, Nen is complicated and compounding. It's a lot of things. In any case, Hisoka generally conjures these small sheets of paper, but texture surprise would work with anything smooth and flat. I guess the paper is just the cheapest and most effective cost aura-wise. And according to Hisoka, texture surprise is able to replicate over 1,000 textures pre-death. It was very underutilized, which I suppose only helps with keeping the surprise element intact. And with that in mind, the one thing that Hisoka learned from his fight with Chrollo was to never let his opponent choose the battlefield. In fact, in chapter 357, he states, "Gee, fighting someone of Chrollo's caliber. It's difficult under the opponent's ideal conditions." Well, reality is harsh. So my proposal would be, what if Hisoka had a way of controlling the battlefield, luring his opponents in to fight under his ideal conditions? An example of which would be using texture surprise to create a space perfectly suited to Hisoka, or using texture surprise to lure his opponents into a space they feel is more ideal for them before revealing that they are in fact somewhere that's not there. An example of this may be Nobunaga. He absolutely excels in small spaces. So Hisoka might be able to use an enhanced texture surprise to mimic a small room, only to reveal that they're in a much larger and more gum-friendly environment. It's sort of like a Jack-in-the-Box, except you're Jack and there's no box, only a surprise murder clown. Because as promiscuous of a combatant as he is, I don't think that Hisoka is going to just step into a late-night taxi with anyone anymore. Hisoka has much more refined tastes. He's not interested in Chrollo's venue of a Holiday Inn. He'd much rather fight in his 5-star Hilton venue, or whatever he wanted to, because with texture surprise, he could make just about anything work. Basically, he just needs to conjure like much larger sheets of paper, which is probably quite an aura-intensive thing to do, even though it's just paper. But with outrageous aura quantities, that cost just isn't really a problem anymore. So I think there's definitely something to be said for the potential of environmental manipulation. And even though the Illumi Hisoka idea is well and truly debunked, using a combination of bungee gum and texture surprise to change Hisoka's appearance is certainly not off the table. Bungee gum to morph the body into the appropriate proportions, and texture surprise to provide realistic texture capable of surprise, which would again mimic an ability that Chrollo used against Hisoka in the Heaven's Arena fight. Hisoka's potential is limitless. Right now, his Nen is in uncharted territory. He may very well be the most powerful Nen user currently aboard the Black Whale 1, and with the death of both Ant King Meruem and Isaac Netero, perhaps even the most powerful in the entire human realm.